So first, go to ATO website, use the search box to find the section about tax file number. You can also use Google by searching for ATO tax file number. For your reference, ATO stands for Australian Taxation Office. Once you see this webpage, click Apply for a TFN. As a New Zealand citizen, when I applied for my tax file number, I clicked the link for foreign passport holders, permanent migrants, and temporary visitors TFN application. Once you click that link, it will give you more information on who can apply, processing your TFN application, if you already have a TFN, and valid visas. The website will specifically tell you that you can apply for TFN if you meet all three conditions. So, if you are a foreign passport holder, permanent migrant, or temporary visitor, you are already in Australia, your visa is one of the following: a permanent resident visa, a visa with work rights, an overseas student visa, a visa allowing you to stay in Australia indefinitely, including New Zealanders, automatically granted a visa on arrival. You can apply for TFN online, and in my experience, getting a TFN was actually the easiest to complete out of the many to-do lists to move and settle in Australia. To apply online, you must have a valid passport or relevant travel documents. If you don't have a valid visa, you cannot apply for a TFN. Once you are ready, click that button, Apply Online. Before you start, things to remember: to be eligible to use this service, to apply for a tax file number, you must be in Australia and have a valid permanent migrant visa, a visa with working rights, overseas student visa, visa allowing you to stay in Australia. And if you already have a TFN, you can also complete this application if you want to know what your TFN is and do not know your previous registration details when you last applied. If you would like a copy of your tax file number advice, and if you need to confirm your identity details with the ATO. After clicking Start, it will take you to the identification page. So all fields marked with an asterisk are mandatory. You will be asked to provide your travel documentation, and ATO will use this to check your details with the Department of Home Affairs and confirm that you are eligible for a tax file number. Now, enter the information exactly as it appears on your passport or travel document. So, put in your passport or travel document number, your passport or travel document country of origin, answer if you have ever visited Australia before, and put in your personal details, your title, family name, first given name, other given names, and if you have been known by any other names. For example, your name before marriage. Also provide information for your date of birth, your gender, and confirm if you have a spouse, and click Next. After completing the identification page, the next pages will be about your tax file number, address, contact, and a summary page. Now, I only had to wait a week before eventually receiving my ATO letter by post, and the date on the letter was actually the date when I completed my online application. Now that you have your Australian tax file number, there are a couple of things you should know. But first, if we're just meeting, Kia ora, kamusta? Welcome to Australia. I am your host, Binibining Veronica. On our last video, I shared how I created my 𝐷𝐿 account, and on this video, we will talk about tax file number. I actually just showed you how to create a TFN online, so if you skipped that part, why? Go back. I'll share the timestamp. Also, in this video, I will share how you can provide your tax file number to your employer, and we'll cover some basics about lodging your tax return in Australia. Moving to Australia? Well, you gotta plan with Veronica. From my last video, I also shared how you can find a job in Australia while still living in New Zealand. So let's just continue from that. Let's say you got a job offer, you signed a contract, congratulations, and now you have to provide your tax file number. Now, your employer will ask you to complete a tax file number declaration form, and it looks something like this. You will have to complete section A, and the first question is asking you to provide your tax file number. You will also be asked to provide your name, your title, family name, other given names. It'll ask you your home address in Australia, If you have changed your name since you last dealt with ATO, it'll ask you to provide your previous family name. And it'll also ask you for your primary email address, what's your date of birth, on what basis are you paid, are you an Australian resident for tax purposes, a foreign resident for tax purposes, or a working holiday maker. It will also ask you if you want to claim the tax-free threshold from this payer, and if you have higher education loan program, vet student loan, financial supplement, student startup loan, or trade support loan debt. And finally, you'll have to sign this form and provide the date. Section B will be completed by your employer, and disclaimer. I am not an accountant. I am not a registered tax agent. I cannot provide you any professional advice about taxation in Australia. I am just sharing my experience moving from New Zealand to Australia. And if you go to ATO's website, you'll see more information about Australian resident for tax purposes. So generally, ATO considers you to be an Australian resident for tax purposes if you have always lived in Australia or you have come to Australia and live here permanently. You'll also be considered as an Australian resident for tax purposes if you have been in Australia continuously for 6 months or more, and for most of that time you worked in the one job and lived at the same place. If you have been in Australia for more than 6 months of the year, unless your usual home is overseas and you do not intend to live in Australia. Other consideration would be if you go overseas temporarily and you do not set up a permanent home in another country, or you are an overseas student who has come to Australia to study and are enrolled in a course that is more than 6 months long. I will show you a table about individual tax rates shortly, but obviously if you are enjoying this video, then please make sure to hit like, subscribe, and turn on your notification bell so you will know when I upload new videos just like this one. And if you'd like to support the channel, then please hit that super thanks icon at the bottom of this video or buy me a coffee by clicking the link below. Alternatively, a big thumbs up also goes a long way. Salamat po! So, the individual tax rates for tax residents and foreign residents are different. So, the resident tax rates for 2023 to 2024 is on this table. Just know that this table does not include Medicare levy of 2%. And then, on the other side is the foreign resident tax rates for 2023 to 2024. And on that note, foreign residents are taxed higher. When I submitted my TFN declaration form to my employer, I didn't realize that I was an Australian resident for tax purposes. Kasi nga, hindi ko siya naintindihan. So I was initially taxed at a higher rate. By the way, we've started a Facebook group for Pinoy nurses in New Zealand to Australia, and you are welcome to join. You can also grab my free nursing career abroad planner by clicking the link below or by going to my Facebook page, Binibining Veronica. Anyway, I eventually realized that and contacted my employer and payroll department. They are pretty good here in a way that if you pay more than the tax you owed, you can get it back when you lodge your tax return. And then you know how in New Zealand, our tax year is from April 1 to March 31. In Australia, the tax year is from July 1 to June 30. Lodging a tax return in Australia deserves a separate video, but just know that we actually got a registered tax agent here in Australia to help us with our application. You do have to pay for their service, but you can claim it as a deductible when you submit your tax return for the following year. I know it's so confusing. Like I said, lodging your tax return deserves a separate video. Anyway, just know that to lodge a tax return, you can do it by yourself, either online or paper-based, or you can lodge your tax return with a registered tax agent like what we did. Now, depending on what you do for a living, there are work-related expenses which you can claim. So, an example here would be for nurses. You can claim for car expenses. However, you cannot claim the cost of normal trips between home and work, even if you live a long way from your usual workplace or if you have to work outside normal business hours, for example, public holidays or early morning shifts. However, in limited circumstances, you can claim the cost of trips between home and work where you have shifting places of employment. That is, if you don't have a fixed workplace and you continually travel from one work site to another during your work day. You can also claim the cost of using a car you own when you drive directly between separate jobs on the same day. For example, traveling from your first job as a nurse to your second job as a university lecturer, to and from an alternate workplace for the same employer on the same day. For example, driving between clinics for the same employer. If you claim car expenses, you can use the logbook method or the cents per kilometer method to calculate your deduction. And all of this information are available in ATO's website. Another form of example would be self-education and study expenses. So you can claim self-education and study expenses if your course relates directly to your employment as a nurse or midwife and it maintains or improves the skills and knowledge you need for your current duties, results in or is likely to result in an increase in income from your current employment. For example, continuing professional development to maintain your registration or taking a Master of Health Advanced Nursing to maintain or improve the specific skills and knowledge you require as a nurse. There are also other expenses. You can claim the work-related portion of other expenses that relate to your employment, including union and professional association fees, agency commissions and agency fees, and annual practicing certificate fees, technical or professional publications, tools and equipment such as stethoscope or a pin watch, personal protective equipment you buy such as gloves, face masks, sanitizer, or antibacterial spray if your job required close proximity with patients. And for your information, when you lodge your tax return, just know that you may also be liable for a tax bill. And it can happen because of a lot of reasons. The important thing is if you receive a tax bill, you will need to pay it by the due date on your notice of assessment. If you can't pay on time, it's important to take action quickly while your debt is still manageable. You may be eligible to set up your own payment plan tailored to your circumstances. If you're still unsure why you have a tax bill or having difficulty paying, you can contact Australian Taxation Office or speak with your registered tax agent. Regardless of your situation or circumstances, they have a personal crisis support available. If you are experiencing financial difficulties or serious hardship and you're finding it hard to lodge or pay your tax, they also have support available for you. Question of the day: are you thinking of moving to Australia? What are you most excited about? Let me know in the comment section below. If you think this video is helpful, then share it. Share it to your friends or watch my other video about applying for childcare subsidy in Australia. As always, I wish you all the best with your journey and I hope you will be blessed. I'll see you soon. Bye!